Well, hello. Today we are in Da Nang, Vietnam, and we are at Nang Nomad Fest, and I have Ibo here. He just finished giving a wonderful talk about communication across cultures, and I thought it was very valuable information that I think so many people can benefit from. So I had to ask him to be a guest on my show. So, Ibo, do you want to introduce yourself and your work, and we can go from there?
Yeah, let's do that. So, Ibrahima is the full name, but everybody calls me Ibo, so please do so too. What do I do for work? So, I am a consultant in intercultural differences, which sounds pretty vague, but at the end, I'm consulting companies when it comes to understanding cultural nuances. An example would be a company in the US that wants to do business in Vietnam, as an example. Things are done differently in Vietnam. Therefore, it's very important to know those things, to understand those nuances, to be able to navigate from communicating, selling, or maybe leading teams. That's what I basically do.
Yeah. And how did you get started in this work? I think it's very impactful, but what was the initial like, hey, this is needed?
So I worked in corporate for 10 years. I worked for a small company that people might know, Red Bull, the energy drink company. So I worked for a decade for Red Bull and was responsible for Africa, Middle East, and Asia. And during that time, I realized, there is so many things that are similar, but as well different when it comes to dealing in different countries. So I realized as well for a lot of big corporation, cultural nuances was not always a topic. We used to get one training, for example, for all across the globe because that's what corporate gave. But we
Yeah.
didn't adapt it to the nuances of those countries. And that's when I realized maybe it is needed once I research a little bit more. And then I realized, like, okay, I'm already navigating so many cultures because I needed to. Let me look into what those cultural nuances actually are in theory. So that's what got it started. So I had the experience, but now I could finally name those by looking into literature and reading books. And that's how I started around 3 years ago to make it my own business. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. I think it's beautiful. I mean, before we hopped on this video, we talked about how I think there's so much divisiveness in the world, whether it's politics or religion or whatever. And I love the idea of just understanding different perspectives and different ways of thinking, and that it's not about a matter of right or wrong. It's just understanding the culture and the personalities that people have. I think it's beautiful to be able to understand the differences in our perspectives that in turn make us understand how similar we are and just how we were taught differently growing up, and that creating a culture scape for all of us to follow.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest misconception when it comes to cultural nuances or what culture is, when you learn about different cultures, it never tells you how people are, it tells you what people are used to, which is a huge difference. Whatever you learn, I cannot tell you how you are as an American. What I can tell you is what you are used to due to the fact that you grew up in the US, right?
Right.
I cannot tell you anything about French people. What I can tell you is how it is or what is expected from you in France. A great example is one of the cultures that is deemed as punctual, let's say Germany or the Germans. Not every German is on time, but everybody who lives in Germany knows that punctuality is highly valued. So it starts already in the way we're saying things. It's not the Germans, it's Germany, because somebody who grew up in Germany could be punctual as a person, right? And lives in Germany, so their personality aligns with the culture that they live in.
Right.
But you could be an unpunctual German and still live in Germany, so you have to adapt at any time. So your personality will never influence the culture. The culture might influence you. You might turn up being punctual because you grew up in Germany,
Right.
but that doesn't say that you're punctual just because you're German. So therefore, I think it's in the understanding it starts there.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked too about the difference in communication and feedback. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little more about that, like the differences in cultures and countries?
Yeah. So the difference in communication start with languages, right? Because in languages we speak about, we call them low context and high context language. So American English is, for example, the lowest context language in the world. It is when I speak, it's my responsibility to be understood, meaning I say what I mean and I mean what I say. Right? Then you have German, British, English, Dutch, which is kind of the same in the same square, I would say. Then you have in the middle languages like French, Italian, Spanish. And then you have on the other hand, the most high context languages in the world would be most Asian languages, Arabic, which in that case would mean when I speak, it's your responsibility to understand me. And in practice, it means if I would give you feedback, let's say in Korea, I will tell you, for example, if I didn't like your presentation of this week, I will tell you, I really like last week's presentation, right? What I said is, I like last week's presentation. What I mean is, I don't like the presentation today.
Right.
But since we have the same context, the same culture, you know what I mean. Because there it is very important in terms of like giving feedback, not to lose face. So therefore, you need to read between the lines. So a high context language is when I speak, you have to understand me. I don't have to state the obvious.
Right.
And that makes it very, very different and very different. And what we spoke about as well, what you said before, it's a matter of perspective, right? We know what we know, and when something is done differently, we kind of are either surprised or don't know where it's coming from. And what I like to tell people is, we mostly know how we see others. I want to show people how you are seen by others. And this example is like, if you would be, let's say, from the US and you speak American English, and you deal with a team in Korea,
Okay.
you might have the feeling that those people are not being truthful to you because they are hiding something. They might not say what they mean, right? That might be your perspective. But what if I tell you on the other way around, they might think of you when you speak it to them too directly. It's like, why are you stating the obvious? I'm not stupid because in my culture, we're not stating the obvious. It's just understood, right? Therefore, it's not right or wrong. It's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah, I love this. Have you created any like frameworks or guides for people, like a playbook? I think that would be really helpful. Have you created one? Or
Yeah.
thought of one?
Yeah. So I looked into what is out there already. There are a lot of frameworks that are there, but I saw that something is missing in each of those. So I created my own,
Okay.
which spells connect. So it shows like different ways of how you can compare cultures. But the most important part is what was missing, in my opinion. It kind of generalized more than giving nuance to it. So it was saying the Germans or the Americans. It's not that. In my opinion, it's just like, and in my experience, it's more nuanced than that. It's the people. And then when it comes to, so like we said, I call it encoding communication. Is what we talked about with the languages. Maybe a good example would be, we talked about how trust is built, right? So an example of that is you can directly compare it to how reliable a legal system is in a country, right? If you have a very strong legal system, let's say take the US as an example, the more reliable the legal system, the least I have to trust you personally. Because once the contract is signed, you have to abide by it. Otherwise, I can just sue you.
Right.
In a culture where the legal system is not as strong, or it is frowned upon to sue someone, the handshake that I give you is way more important than the contract we sign. Therefore, in a culture where the legal system is not as strong, the personal rapport is way more important. So people will ask you way more personal questions, what might make you feel uncomfortable. Because as a woman, they might ask you if you are married, or about your parents, or if you have kids, which would be in one culture like, oh, why are you asking me that? You don't need to know that. But on the other side, they need to know who they're dealing with because they need to build trust on a personal level. And at the end, you can see it as well as in a culture where the legal system is strong, you might go after signing the deal, you might go for drinks and eat to celebrate.
Right.
In other cultures where the legal system is not reliable, you're going to eat and drink to get to the deal.
Okay.
Because now we need to get to know you, and therefore it's very different. So you might go want to do business in Vietnam or let's say Thailand or in Nigeria. You might spend a lot of time drinking and eating to get to know people.
Right.
They need to trust you first before doing business. On my own experience, I remember doing business in Japan, and when we arrived, like for the first 2 days, even though we set a meeting, they took us around with like taking us to see to sightseeing and dinners, and for 3 days we didn't talk about business. And the only trick I learned back then was to book a flexible flight
Yeah.
on a business trip to Japan because things might take longer afterwards.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of being aware of it, so you're not surprised when you get there.
Right.
Because otherwise you're like, why are you wasting my time? Let's get this started. But if you're aware of it and somebody told you, you might be more prepared and not getting stressed. You're like, oh, this is part of it. So let's get to know each other first,
Yeah.
and then otherwise it's seen as well as being rude
Yes.
to like jump directly into business, right, from a
Yeah.
personal point of view.
That makes a lot of sense. I like to, this is very valuable information.
Yeah.
I love this so much. I'm like, that's why I'm like, do you have a book? Because I think that this could be really helpful for us Americans, especially to learn. I think in America, we're just like very entitled. We're like, it's our way or no way. And then
Yeah.
you go to other countries, you're like, what are you doing? I like the example that you gave through your talk earlier today about the Swiss and how they conduct meetings as
Yeah.
opposed to people in India potentially. And, maybe in the Switzerland,
Yeah.
people will say like, okay, we have a meeting from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
and whatever is not discussed, we will table it for next week. Whereas
Yeah.
in India, they're like, okay, we started at 10 a.m., but we haven't come to a resolution, so we need to extend the meeting
Yeah.
until we come to a resolution.
Yeah.
Have you been in that situation before, and how was your initial reaction to that?
Yes. So I think if you're not aware of it, it might be like people are not respecting time. We're talking about like I call it orientation of time in my presentation. It's not about being punctual or not. Is does time rank higher than other things, right? In this case, it was this team where like they were complaining. They were part of the same company, right? But then there was one team in India and one team in Switzerland. The team in Switzerland was always complaining that meetings will take longer, right? 15 minutes longer. And they were like, but like, guys, let's get it done. And once the meeting was supposed to end, they ended. And then they said, let's find a meeting the next week. The team in India was complaining for two reasons. One, they said, for us, it was more important to get to a conclusion rather than finishing on time. That was one. And the second thing they said was as well, that's why it took you 3 meetings and 2.5 weeks to get to a solution. But then we found a solution now. With the time pressure, you might not come to a solution because we always have this really strict timings
Yeah.
in 30 minutes, in
Right.
45, in an hour. But what if you need more than that? What do you do? And the
Right.
question is for everyone here, would you end that meeting on time because it's more important because you have something else afterwards? Or would you give yourself a little bit more time to find it? So no right and wrong, it's just a matter of seeing it.
Yeah. I would say the latter, well, at least for me personally, I
Yeah.
feel like the latter feels more valuable because I think in the grand scheme of time, you're saving yourself time.
Yeah.
Maybe variables in someone's life change next
Yeah.
week as opposed to this week. And you don't know how long you'll have that person. Which side of the spectrum are you on?
I think it makes sense now that somebody explained it to you.
Yeah.
But then once you're confronted by it, you're like, because I'm talking about us in
Yeah.
general, we're so used to one way, and this is the right way.
Right.
And they're like, why are you doing this? But once somebody explains to you the why, and that's what I try to do, or try to explain to people the why behind things.
Yeah.
And once you get it, like, oh, that makes sense. And that's what I'm trying to do, like this thing of like explain to you why it happens. And once you get it, you're like, huh, maybe that makes sense on the other side. And for me personally, what I try to do is we tend, like I'm talking about in general, especially if you're running your own business, to pack meeting after meeting after meeting. I always have, it doesn't matter how stressful the day is, even if it's an automated meeting app like Calendly or whatever you use, I always have a 30-minute between meetings. It doesn't matter what the meeting is,
Okay.
right? So I never pack back to back where I have to say, oh, I have to go because I have another meeting.
Right.
Giving yourself that freedom to do 10 minutes longer, it's very valuable because then maybe there is something important and you don't have that pressure on the back of your mind. That's what I do personally, and I feel it valuable for me.
Yeah.
But then a small thing is just maybe not having that pressure of packing meeting after meeting. That could be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, I was curious about your understanding and exposure to different ways of doing business. Like, which ways have you adopted for yourself in the way that you conduct business?
I think it's the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I think it's very, how would I say it? The circumstances will
Okay.
matter. So, let me give you an example. I'm a big fan of starting with why we should do things because that's just how I grew up, right? My mom was a teacher. My mom always preached, you need to know why you're doing something before what and how,
Yeah.
right? That was very important. But then how I do business, I realized certain cultures, the why might not be as important.
Yeah.
There might be more focus on what we're going to do, how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Let's care about the why afterwards.
Right.
So now how I do business, depending of where I do business, my presentation and my pitches are different.
Right.
So once I know who I'm talking to, I'm switching the position of my presentation, starting with a why or not starting with a why, depending of where I am.
love
That was one of the first things. And the other end is depending of where you are, and that's what we do as human beings. We like to talk about ourselves,
Right.
like I'm doing right now in this presentation, but I'm being interviewed in this case. But try to be more interested than interesting, right? Especially if you're doing business somewhere else.
Right.
Nobody has ever complained about talking too much about themselves.
Right.
So therefore, try to be like we're trying to go to do business with somebody else, somewhere else. We try to talk about ourselves, trying to sound interesting,
Right.
but try the other way around and try to be interested and asking questions, and you will see how people might open up a little bit because you might have an idea of someone, an
Right.
idea of a business, an idea of the person you're talking to, and then once you ask question, you might realize, oh, I haven't seen it that way, or maybe the person is different than what you've thought before pitching your idea.
Right.
Because you might jump in and pitch your idea, and you realize, oh, that person is way different than what I thought. And
Yeah.
I think one of the most things I learn, and that's what I adapt, is people are different than me,
Yeah.
and that thinking the same way I do. The bait is for the fish and not for the fisherman.
Right.
At the end, I'm doing it for the person. I need to adapt. You need to adapt whatever you're pitching, whatever you're selling, to the person you're selling it to.
Right.
So you need to know the person you're selling it to.
Yeah.
Therefore, you need to listen and ask questions. That's, I think, the biggest thing that I've changed was that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, yeah, it helps socially business. Well, I guess business is social as well, to your point. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's what it is.
I love this. Okay, so you touched on this quite a bit, but like we talked about how much more similar we are as
Yeah.
humans than we aren't.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that? Like you said, there are two different types of people.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so we were talking about cultures in general when I was talking about those differences. They're a little bit more divided, but there are certain ways where they are, in certain aspects, just two examples,
Right.
right? And we spoke about it. There's this book called Rule Makers and Rule Breakers. I will recommend it to read it. They talk about how certain cultures have way more strict rules than others, right? And in this case, they give example for countries that have a lot of more rules is because they are highly populated, they have a lack of resource, meaning space or maybe agriculture, food, whatever it is. There are resources that need to be managed. Otherwise, the country or the culture might be negatively impacted by it in the future. Let's take Hong Kong as an example. There is a lack of space in general, right? So that's why there are a lot of high-rise building. So you need a lot of rules to make sure that the rules are followed. Otherwise, things will go off rails. So a rule-making country has a lot of rules, but at the same time, they have a lot of unwritten rules. And when you come from outside, nobody will tell you.
Right.
But if you don't follow them, people might be a little bit more, expect you to do so.
Right.
So the example that I give here is, let's take Germany and Japan.
Okay.
Despite the fact that they're very far from each other, they're very close culturally in that aspect. One, they have a lot of unwritten rules.
Yeah.
Second, if you don't know the language, it's very hard for you to adapt in that country,
Right.
Because if you don't speak Japanese or if you don't speak German, it's going to be very hard for you to connect with people.
Right.
Therefore, people might be in Japan or in Germany, might tell people that are coming from outside, it's going to be very hard for you to adapt. So what are you doing here? Like
Yeah.
the variability is very high. Maybe you shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Then the other hand, the other side is the Netherlands. They're literally very close. They are neighbors to Germany, but they couldn't be more different.
Okay.
In the Netherlands, they call a rule breaker country. They don't have many rules. You can live in the Netherlands without speaking Dutch because a lot of people speak English.
Okay.
The small parenthesis, why is because there is no dubbing culture in movies in the Netherlands.
Oh.
They don't dub movies, they do it in English with subtitles.
Oh wow, I didn't
Right?
know that. Okay.
And in most Nordic countries, it's the same. In Norway, people speak English because there is no dubbing.
Yeah. Okay.
Germany has a huge culture of dubbing,
Yeah.
right? So movies are dubbed in German. So for a lot of people growing up in Germany, they never heard the voice of Denzel Washington.
Right.
They know just the German voice of it.
Oh wow.
And there is the same actor who plays that role their whole life.
Wow.
So the voice of Bruce Willis is the voice of Bruce, but it's a German person speaking that, right?
Wow.
Which is an interesting.
That's insane. Never thought about that.
And there are actors playing that. So therefore, in the Netherlands, people are. The only rule that you need to know when you live in the Netherlands is don't walk on the bike path,
Right. Okay.
because people in the Netherlands love their bikes, bike paths are the holy grail.
Yeah.
If you walk on a bike path, a bike will overrun you, shout at you because you don't do that.
Yeah.
But prostitution is legal, weed is legal, and you can live there without a high barrier of entry. So there are not a lot of rules. So they're way more open.
Okay.
Right? So in that case, you have this rule makers and rule breakers in cultures.
Okay.
And the last part is the more rules you have to give your country, your culture, a pocket so they can, let off some steam. If you think about Germany, they have the Oktoberfest where there's a lot of drinking, excessive drinking and whatever they're doing. You have the carnival in the west of Germany for like a week straight. People are just outside. Football on the weekend,
Yeah.
people drink, shout, do whatever they want. And Monday morning, they act like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Right? You have the same in Japan where you have the geishas, you have the karaoke, you have the excessive drinking, but the next day, people got it out of the system
Yeah.
and they can go back to the rules. Because you need that. You need that mantle. Otherwise, people will just, implode.
Right.
You don't have that as much in a country where you don't have much rules. People don't need that.
Right.
They don't need that to vent out because of that. So in that aspect, they're only two sides of it.
Okay.
In terms of culture, there's rule makers and rule breakers. There's something in between, but there is always one side. That's the closest you will get to two sides of a story when it comes to cultures.
Wow. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
people are people. Like, I think anyone that when we're put in a box, like any parent that was like, hey, you can't do this thing, and they never let their kids like express themselves. They go out to college or university and they go crazy. So
Yeah.
it's just human nature.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm curious, do you have any advice for anyone who is traveling to Japan or another country outside of their own that has a stark cultural difference? Like, what should they do to prepare to do business with another culture?
I think being open minded, it sounds cheesy, but being open minded of like things are done could be done a different way than you, and there's a reason for it.
Okay.
Right? You might not know the reason,
Yeah.
but there's always a reason for it.
Yeah.
Just believe that people are not idiots.
Yeah.
They're not just doing something just because. There's something that has happened that has pushed the culture to choose this path.
Right.
Right? So let's use the example of across Asia and the Middle East as well. It is expected from you when you come in somebody's house, you take off your shoes.
Right.
Right? If you grow up somewhere else, you never thought of that. But it
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
You're walking around with your shoes, dirty shoes, you carry everything outside, and you walk into your home. And then you're like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is logical. There are a lot of other things that are logical if you hear it,
Right.
but you just never thought of it.
Right.
Right? And there are all of those things in every single culture.
Right.
If you talk about giving feedback, not as direct,
Right.
you're like, just tell me, I want to know.
Right.
But other cultures don't want you to lose face in front of others. So they will never give you feedback in a team.
Right.
They will always give you feedback one-on-one.
Right. I love
It,
that.
it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But if you used to, you're like, just tell me, I don't mind. But cultures do things for a reason.
Okay.
Right? There's always a reason why. And the example of punctuality that we talked about during the conferences, people will say, oh, you don't respect my time if you are not on time to a meeting.
Right.
It is way easier to get from A to B with a metro when you live in Munich, Germany.
Okay.
It is way more challenging to get from A to B when you're in Mumbai.
Okay.
Even if I wanted to be on time, right? It is challenging. So therefore, there is this common understanding in the thing of like, I'll give you that leeway of 15 minutes because I've been there. It's not that people don't respect your time. It's just like, it is challenging. You don't know when you go to Lagos,
Yeah.
right? And you try to go from A to B. Traffic is crazy.
Right.
I might be there 15. It's not that I don't respect your time, but since we're all in this, we have decided like that 15 minutes. Obviously, people will carry that when they go somewhere else because that's what they used to.
Right.
Right? And that's the nuance when it comes to this. So if you're going somewhere else, in another country, to your question, is just be aware
Right.
that things happen differently. Don't always frown upon it like, but just try to understand why and connect with locals.
Yes.
Talk to people that are on ground. Just don't go to a country and go eat at McDonald's just because that's what you're used to. Don't just connect with your friends. Just learn a couple of words, how to say hi, how to say thank you in another language. That helps massively. It doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
And then chat with locals. They're curious about you too.
Yeah.
And then I think that might help.
This is so beautiful. I love this so much. Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk more about your upbringing. Like,
Okay.
who are you? What was your upbringing like? I think you had a very diverse upbringing. So
Yeah.
it seems like you kind of were brought into like assimilating or learning different cultures. So yeah, can you talk a little more about your upbringing?
Yeah, I was born in Senegal, which is a country in West Africa. My mom is from the Cape Virgin Islands, which are 10 islands west from Senegal, and her parents were Portuguese,
Okay.
right? My dad is a French citizen who was born in Senegal, right?
Wow.
That
Okay.
means growing up already. My mom is very light skinned because
Okay.
she has the Portuguese heritage. People, when I go out with my mom, people think I'm adopted. Like it's
Oh,
literally that.
really? Wow.
My dad is very dark, African.
Okay.
So therefore, already growing up, I had these two things where I was too light for my dad's side
Right.
and the darkest on my mom's side. So
Okay.
therefore, it was already this thing where I needed to adapt. In terms of languages as well, it was different. Then at the age of 14, I moved to Germany, right?
Okay.
So as a young child, I needed to learn a new language, learn a new environment, being able to, connect with people from different backgrounds because things were done differently.
Right.
And then 10 years ago, I moved to the Middle East, where I stayed for nearly as well a decade,
Wow.
and then had the experience of travel. I was lucky enough to travel a lot around the world to see a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
I think I've visited more than 50 countries now, which
Nice.
was nice to just see. And I think that's the biggest, yeah. First, it was needed when I was a child.
Right.
I needed when I moved to Germany. Then I got more curious about it, and
Yeah.
it became now my passion afterwards. I think that's the steps of it.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Okay, so you have shared so much amazing information that I think can truly change the world and how we engage with each other. Where can we find you? Like, where can we follow your work, future work, past work, present work?
Yeah, I need to get better at that because honestly, I work mostly for corporation rather than yeah, individuals or nomads. But I need to be better at that. So I think the best way to find me will be on LinkedIn, under Ibrahima Seck. So I need to close my eyes when I spell because I'm dyslexic. So it's Ibrahima, Ibrahima. The last name is Seck, Seck, and the company is called The Stride Co. The. Stride is Stride Co. And if you put those two things on LinkedIn, you should be able to find me with that face on top of it. And I need to get better at it. I think I will give way more things, especially for individuals, when it comes to like those trainings and understanding. I think I'm gonna upload a course soon for people that are maybe individuals that want to learn more about cultural nuances, just for them to get more insight about that.
Ah, sounds amazing. I already connected with you on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, so I'm excited to see all the amazing things you do. I think the work that you're doing is the Lord's work. As a traveler myself, I'm always trying to connect and observe and
Yeah.
be present in my interactions with other people. So I just think your presentation was amazing. I was like, I need to get him on here. Tell everybody.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll definitely share his information on here so you can link to his LinkedIn and book him for your next corporate meeting.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time and doing this with me.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you. All
Thank you very
right.
much.